This time we will discuss a new film, entitled Morbius. This film tells the story of a man who turned into a vampire, after he injected a serum he made himself, in the hope that he would recover from an illness he had suffered from since childhood. Let's prepare a drink and the best snacks, and sit back and enjoy the story. Without lingering any longer, let's just go straight to the storyline. This film begins by showing a man named Michael Morbius, who has just landed by helicopter. Then, he limped towards a cave. You can see that at the door of the cave there is already a bat trap. As soon as he arrives at the door of the cave, Morbius stood up and slashed his own hand. The dripping blood made thousands of bats scatter, attacking whatever was outside the cave. The scene then switches, showing the childhood of Michael Morbius. Since childhood, Morbius has lived in the hospital, because he suffers from a rare blood disorder, which makes him have to do dialysis 3 times a day. To stay alive, the disease slowly eats away at his body, and made Morbius unable to walk normally. One day, the hospital director, as well as Mobile's adoptive father, named Dr. Nicholas, brought another child who had the same disease as Morbius. The child was named Lucian, but Morbius preferred to call him Milo. The next day, when Milo and Morbius were doing dialysis, Milo's blood pump suddenly didn't work, which made Milo suddenly faint. Morbius, who was next to him, tried to revive Milo, and called the nurses, but no help came. Because he had no other choice, Morbius was desperate to fix the dialysis device, only with a pen. Unexpectedly, his action succeeded in saving Milo's life, and his blood-pumping device started working normally. What Morbius did made Dr. Nicholas amazed, and as if he didn't believe in Morbius' intelligence, he finally helped Morbius to get a scholarship, medical school in New York. Before parting with Milo, Morbius left a letter for Milo, saying that he would create a medicine which could cure people like them. The letter suddenly flew out the window. Milo came out to get the letter, found that the letter was already in the hands of naughty children. The children immediately bullied Milo because of his abnormal condition. Luckily, Dr. Nicholas found Milo and immediately helped him. 25 years later, Morbius grew, became a doctor and scientist, who succeeded in creating a discovery in the form of synthetic blood, which had saved so many lives. Thanks to his discovery, Dr. Morbius won the Nobel Prize from the King and Queen of Sweden, but he instead refused. Currently, Dr. Morbius works in the Horizon Laboratory, together with his partner, named Dr. Martin. There, Morbius and Martin treat children with blood disorders. In addition, for many years, Morbius also conducts research to find the healing formulation of his illness. Martin's doctor later discovers that Morbius secretly captured hundreds of blood-sucking bats from Costa Rican caves, in hopes of merging their genes with his own to cure his condition. Several bats have been made objects of research to find the serum suitable, so that later it can be injected into humans, but in several trials, Morbius always failed from bats, so you can be sure the formula works, so the serum can be injected into people who suffer from blood disorders, including Morbius himself. After being injected with the serum, the experimental mice suddenly faint, making Morbius and Martin give up hope. But after left for a while, the rats suddenly moved, and came back to life. After all the long research, finally Morbius managed to find a bright spot. After getting the formula, Dr. Morbius went straight to his best friend, Milo, to share this happy news. In the next experiment, the serum formula, this bat gene, will be injected directly into Morbius's body. Because this research is illegal, so Morbius asks for Milo's help to prepare the ship, along with the ship's crew, in international waters, which will serve as a place for experiments. In short, all the preparations are finally finished. Dr. Morbius then asked Dr. Martin to inject his homemade serum containing bat DNA. After the serum was injected into Morbius's body, his body began to show a reaction. Dr. Martin then tied Morbius's legs and hands. Because his body kept shaking, Morbius was then left in the room alone, while Dr. Martin monitored him from the outside. Because this was the first gene union with humans, Dr. Martin was worried that this experiment would most likely fail. But Dr. Martin kept trying to convince himself, hoping everything was fine. In the middle of the experiment, one of the ship's crew suddenly entered the laboratory room. Dr. Martin then asked him to leave, because the room was only devoted to him and Dr. Morbius. In the middle of the conversation, they were surprised to see the room where Morbius was bound, now suddenly empty. They checked inside, and found Morbius already hanging above like a bat. Morbius' face turned very terrible, complete with very sharp teeth and nails. Dr. Martin was scared, unable to do anything whatever, but the ship's crew there still tried to shoot Morbius. Morbius was angry, then immediately attacked the ship's crew and sucked his blood until it was finished. Dr. Martin, who was scared, immediately ran out and closed the isolation room, but the commotion that occurred made the crew other ships started arriving. Dr. Martin tried to warn them not to shoot Morbius, but the crew didn't listen to him. Seeing Dr. Martin fainted, making Morbius even more ferocious, he attacked the entire crew, and sucked their blood until nothing was left.
He killed them, like a bat, thirsty for blood. After all the crew died, Morbius finally regained consciousness and returned to being human. But his condition is now very different from before. His body now looks very muscular, healthy, and he can walk like a normal person. When he realized, he was confused, saw the corpses of people around him, and as soon as he checked the CCTV, he was very surprised, seeing what he had done. After that, Morbius immediately checked Dr. Martin's condition. After making sure Dr. Martin fine, Morbius immediately contacted the emergency radio, and fled from the scene. Not long after, the FBI agents finally arrived to check the situation on the ship. The agents felt confused, saw the condition of the bodies, which looked like they were killed by a vampire. Then the agents evacuated them all, including Dr. Martin. On the other hand, Morbius arrived at the Horizon Laboratory to recheck the results of his research. There he also tried to adapt to the new conditions of his body, where now he is like someone who already has superpowers. Just like bats, he becomes more ferocious at night, complete with sight and hearing radar, which is very sharp, unique. As soon as he enters the blood-sucking bat tube, Morbius is not attacked at all, but instead he is treated like a brother. For the sake of being able to survive, like it or not, Morbius has to consume blood, because he doesn't want to kill anyone, so he decides to consume synthetic blood made by him. Even though the effect of synthetic blood turns out to only have an effect of 6 hours, even day by day the effect is decreasing. Morbius is worried if later the synthetic blood no longer has an effect. He is afraid that he will need human blood to survive. Milo, who knows what happened from the news, immediately meets Morbius in the Horizon Laboratory, where he sees Morbius locked himself in an isolation room looking dying.
Because he needed a blood supply, Milo, who saw this, quickly took synthetic blood, and handed it over to Morbius. After Morbius regained consciousness, Milo was surprised to see the changes in Morbius' body. He asked Morbius to give the serum to himself. Morbius, who knew the effects of the serum, that refused to give it to Milo. He didn't want Milo to turn into a monster, just like himself, but because Milo kept insisting, Morbius finally got angry, and kicked Milo out of the laboratory. At night, a nurse at the Horizon Laboratory was seen being chased by something. In that fear, the nurse was arrested, and her blood was sucked to death. The next day, everyone was surprised to see the nurse's corpse. Morbius felt guilty, thinking that he had killed the nurse. Did not want the incident to happen again. Morbius rushed to prepare his needs and intended to leave the laboratory, but the two FBI agents found Morbius in the lobby, the laboratory, and starting to suspect him. Morbius, who started to feel pressured, was forced to run away from the two agents, heading towards the rooftop. When he got to the rooftop, a policeman was ready to shoot him, because Morbius didn't want any more victims, so he immediately turned himself into the police. In prison, Morbius was again interrogated by two FBI agents, but because he couldn't possibly tell everything, so Morbius refused to answer all the questions the two agents had. Soon Milo came, pretending to be Morbius' lawyer. There he gave a bag of blood to Morbius, so that Morbius could survive. After Milo left, Morbius saw Milo's stick left there, indicating that Milo just came out without the help of his cane. That made Morbius realize that Milo had taken the serum secretly, and injected it into his own body. That also made Morbius angry with Milo. He immediately drank the bag of blood given by Milo, and immediately escaped from prison.
Take me, for example. I may look calm.
Not long after, Morbius finally met Milo. There Milo admitted that he was the one who had killed the laboratory nurse. Milo felt, now is the time for people like them to get lives like normal humans. Morbius shouldn't be angry, because this is a gift from God for they. Morbius, who heard that, got angry at Milo, until there was a fierce fight between the two of them. The two vampires fought each other, regardless of the people around them. Some policemen who came tried to stop them, but Milo instead killed all the policemen. Morbius began to realize that one of the powers he had, namely the power of flight, he began to feel the wind touch his body, and managed to fly like a bat. At the murder scene, the agents who saw the bodies of the police immediately suspected that Morbius was the culprit. The next day Morbius also met with Dr. Martin. There Morbius asked Dr. Martin for help, to get all his belongings, which were in the laboratory, as of the scientist who has created all this chaos. Morbius feels responsible for creating a serum that can restore himself, and Milo becomes an ordinary human. Meanwhile Milo is now enjoying the changes and strength that is in his body. He is now not the weak Milo as before, so he could easily kill anyone, which made him angry, but due to his brutality, Milo was not aware that he had been recorded on CCTV when he was carrying out his actions, so in the end the police and FBI agents finally found out that there was another vampire, besides Morbius. The faces of Morbius and Milo were finally broadcast as fugitives all over the news. Dr. Nicholas, who saw this, was shocked, and asked the truth to Milo. Milo, who was angry at that time, finally killed Dr. Nicholas with his own hands.
At the same time, Morbius and Martin finally succeeded in creating an antidote serum to return things to normal. After that, Morbius also brought the serum and looked for Milo. In the middle of his search, Morbius got a call from Dr. Nicholas, who was dying at that time. Morbius immediately went to see Dr. Nicholas and intended to save him, but unfortunately Morbius was too late. Dr. Nicholas died after asking Morbius to save Milo, and stopped all of this. After hearing his adoptive father's will, Dr. Morbius began looking for Milo's whereabouts with his bat radar. From his listening radar, Morbius heard Dr. Martin's voice, who asked him for help. It turned out that there was Milo, who threatened to kill him. With his radar, Morbius managed to find their whereabouts, and immediately flew to save Dr. Martin. Unfortunately, when he arrived at the location, Morbius was again too late, because Dr. Martin was lying down starting to bleed out. At the end of his life, Dr. Martin bit Morbius' lips. so that a drop of his blood entered Dr. Martin's body. After that, Morbius approached Milo, and got ready to do a real fight. At the beginning of the fight Morbius lost, because he was unable to match Milo's strength. But he then controlled thousands of bats to come and attack Milo. After that, Morbius injected an antidote serum, in the form of poison, into Milo's body, until Milo finally died. When the police and FBI agents arrived at the location, Morbius along with thousands of bats flew and fled from the location. The film ends by showing Dr. Martin suddenly came back to life, with his eyeballs turning red. In the post-credits scene the cracks of the multiverse were seen. In the Spider-Man movie The Way Home, which made the target Culture in the multiverse Mobius. Then at night, Culture met Morbius in the middle of the desert. He also invited Morbius to work together to repay Spider-Man's actions, and Morbius was finally interested with this collaboration, and this film was finally finished. I hope friends understand the storyline this time, and see you in the next storyline. Bye.